You can see the Cajarual rider, but starting to break up even some more. Andres Kroll. This is a savage tempo by Wellens here. You know, you got Pogacar in second place there.
Yeah.
With Enric Mas, then Carlos Rodriguez, and then you've got you know, Landa just behind there coming up. But this is breaking.
Yep.
Everybody.
Here we go, Brian. Here we go. He's being dispatched. He's going. Tadej Pogacar's going. This is the moment we've waited for. Look at that. He's winding. He's looking back to see who's ready. The question is, who is ready? That looks like Santiago Buitrago, who's trying to go with him. Carlos Rodriguez, I don't think has got much left either. Buitrago, I think it is, might just get on there. But that was just a little bit of a lifting. It was so obvious. It was so obvious what was going to happen. And here we are.
I'll tell you what, Buitrago's done a great job there. This is what I was saying. Everybody knows what's going to happen. Pogacar was just about to go. It was being wound up the whole time, but yeah, you're giving away some serious bike lengths there by sitting too far back and not being on the wheel. Enric Mas was on the wheel and he couldn't go. So Movistar riding all day. Enric Mas was on his own, didn't have the legs, but look at the gap it's opened already.
Let's remind ourselves, this is Tadej Pogacar, only his second race of the season, so he needs a little bit of time just to wind his way in and get back up to speed. It was not a killer attack by any means, it was just a lifting, a bit of a lifting at exactly the moment we expected. And, well, for a moment there, he had a gap, didn't he? But Buitrago just winding his way back up to the back wheel of him. Two of the best climbers in the race here. Let's see how Buitrago copes with that, though. It doesn't look great.
That's the effort. The effort, he was too far back. And I just complimented him on the effort. Flick at the elbow from Pogacar. Are you going to ride with me? No. Kept the pressure on, and you know, he's alone again. And the rest of the race are just obliterated on this mountainside.
Tadej Pogacar is riding away with this, but he still has 4 kilometres to go to the top of the climb. Once he tops the top of this first category climb, he'll then have 8k to go. Now, admittedly, about 5 or 6k of that is descending, so he'll be into his excellent descending technique, no doubt. But there's still 4k to go. There's an opportunity for a bit of a regrouping behind. Where is Enric Mas? Where is Mikel Landa? What are they doing to try and limit the losses or limit the gains, I should say, limit the gains of Tadej Pogacar here, the two-time Tour de France champion, who is romping away with this opening stage, the potential Queen stage on the first day of the Vuelta Ciclista Andalucia. Well, he's been tucked in the wheels of his teammates. A lot of hard work done by Tim Wellens, who at one point distanced himself from the others before Rafa Majka reeled him back in and then got him back on the front to do the same. Here is the chase from behind. Buitrago is definitely paying for that, Brian, isn't he? He might be waiting for them to come up, but that was a very hard effort.
Yeah, I think he will. He's looking back now. He knows he's got Landa coming up here with Rodriguez, Mas. The thing is, we see it often that when Pogacar goes, very few riders can go with him. You have to be on his wheel, and Buitrago wasn't, but he's making that effort. He put himself into the red to go across to Pogacar, and unfortunately he paid for it. Don't think if he was on his wheel he'd have still gone, but he'd have made it a hell of a lot easier. Easier said than done, I know. You know, there can only be one person on Pogacar's wheel, but it was clear, and if you've got the team to be able to do that, sit as close to this man as possible. But on the form he's got at the moment, especially at this time of year, I think, you know, everybody must be scratching their head and looking at, you know, what their best options are for this race.
I think this sends out, this week in particular, Brian, I know these are early season races, but the Ruta del Sol is really important, this historical race. It sends out, even just his victory on Monday, the kind of form he started the year in, I think it sends out a clear message from him and his team to, well, let's be clear, Jumbo-Visma and Jonas Vingegaard, that he is going to be very, very ready for a big battle in July. But July is a long way away. It's the middle of February. And maybe this is, Brian, maybe this is Tadej Pogacar starting the season below par. Maybe it is. It's just the problem is he's below par. He's so much better than everyone else is on this field, certainly on a climb like this today. And the Slovenian is settling into a very comfortable looking rhythm for him. Wouldn't mind seeing a shot from above. Here we go. Let's have a look and see if we can see visually that gap between him and the chasing group containing Landa, Rodriguez There's enough space there to have a service car between him and them, Brian, as well. As we look back down there, that gap is growing. And if we carry on like this, and if there's any hesitation in amongst those 4 riders chasing, Landa, Buitrago, Rodriguez and Enric Mas, if any hesitation or lack of collaboration between them, then it's just going to keep growing.
And I think it will. Even on the descent, I think it will as well. And it just goes to show you, we were talking beforehand about Ineos Grenadiers and the difference of a week. I thought the Teo Gegenhardt was better in Valencia than Carlos Rodriguez was, but a few riders kind of stepping up, and Carlos Rodriguez having that mechanical, having to ride all the way through the peloton and find himself where he is. So, you know, he's feeling better. I don't know, I've not read anything if Teo has maybe got a bit of a cold or anything like that, but you could clearly see this was going to happen. Movistar were the only team that rode. They have got their man here. And of course, this is the Ruta del Sol. It's not a huge race, but it's the message you put out there. And I know that, you know, in the interview with Tadej Pogačar afterwards, he just focused on the Tour de France. He wants that crown back. He didn't like to be beaten. You know, he's gone out there, and this is a huge statement, and possibly planned. Go out there and, you know, just show everybody how well you're riding, how well you're going, and start to put a little bit of worry about this year's Tour. They have strengthened, of course, and the team looked really strong. It did look a couple of days ago, and it does look today, the way they've really controlled things. But definitely looks as if Pogačar is putting a statement out here. He wants that Tour de France back, and he's going to do whatever it takes to get it back.
Be fascinating to see over the coming months as well how Jonas Vingegaard's build up to that July, midsummer Tour de France is, because Tadej Pogačar is, of course, even despite the fact that he's still so young, at the age of 24, he still races all the way through the season. There's a reason why he's won 2 in Lombardia. What else? Strade Bianche, Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He races hard all year round. I know that is kind of the way of the young modern rider, Brian, but I just wonder whether Jumbo-Visma might have a slightly more traditional build-up as well to that Tour de France, in a similar way to how they did last year as well, just possibly holding Vingegaard back as well. But you know, if Jonas Vingegaard is watching this and watches it, as I'm sure he will, clips of it, yeah, I'm just wondering what makes him think, ooh, do I need to be stepping up a little bit? Is there a doubt there?
The games are already being played at the moment. In fact, Johan Brunel's just been in contact and said, Despierna Caballos. It means, the translation of that is cutting off the legs of the horses. That's what the name of that climb translates to. Thank you, Johan. But cutting off the legs of the horses.
Despierna Caballos. Right.
Yes.
Thank you, Johan. That makes sense. Maybe that's what's happening. What a clear signal. What a clear signal. Direct translation riddled with meaning right now on this final first category climb of the opening stage of the Ruta del Sol. What is this week going to be like all the way through to Sunday? Because the big names are out and playing. And one of them who's playing the most and having the most fun, wouldn't you know it, is Tadej Pogačar. He still always talks about the importance of having fun on the bike and enjoying just riding his bike, let alone racing it. And fast is fun, as we all know. And he's kicked off on the biggest climb of the day, on arguably the biggest stage, right at the beginning of this Ruta del Sol. He and his team are going to have to defend this. And we're looking here, I'm just trying to see, is that Enric Mas with another? Just looking to see who that is, Brian. We could do the slightly nearer shot.
That's the trouble you've got. Enric Mas has just had a bit of a problem here. You can just see it.
Yeah, immediate
problem. And unfortunately, no neutral service. Team car will probably be maybe about a minute away. All that hard work from Movistar. He gets himself in that position. Of course, it can happen to anybody, but you know, you want to take your bad luck in preferably these races rather than the big races, but that is terrible luck for Enric Mas.
I mean, he'll be getting back into a good group there who are not hanging around, but he's in the wrong group compared to all the work, as you say, that Movistar had done for him. Gosh, I can't help but think, Brian, I know I say this fairly often, but I just see it on the screen in front of us. We've seen two riders on this climb, almost both come to a complete standstill, looking down at their gears and almost unable to pedal. I just don't remember this happening as much in the days of cabled gearing. Do you? I'm not Mr. Anti-electric, but we just keep seeing it happen.
We didn't, but then again, we're seeing a lot more races these days as well.
Yeah, true.
But then there's a big question now, how far back is this group? Because it looked to me as if there's a couple of more Bahrain riders. Definitely Teo was there. So with, I know I always talk about strength in numbers, but he has literally cut the legs off all the riders behind. And the thing is, you know, with a bigger group behind, they have got a chance of cutting this gap down. But if they know what's happening in the race, we were quite lucky there to see that shot. And not everybody will see these pictures, because Bahrain, Victorious and his Grenadiers had definite numbers in that third group. And they're not that far behind. They've got Landa and Bertrego and Carlos Rodriguez here, but how far back is the group behind? Because I think each of these teams have got two teammates not that far behind.
There's the top of the climb. You were not mistaken, by the way. Your eyes did not deceive you. Tadej Pogačar was riding past snow. You can see the water at the side of the road there is frozen. There's still lying snow here over the top of this climb. It's about just under 1,600 metres above sea level. So not crazy high altitude by any means, but tough enough to bring out the best of them. And today, Tadej Pogačar, as Brian has said, cutting off the legs of horses. Watching this shot from behind Brian, by the way, one of the things I'm struck by Pogačar, and I don't think it was like this last year, he is using a massively flared bar there for a road bar. You can look at the drops, they're flared almost not quite the same as a gravel bike, but definitely borrowing from that gravel theme, isn't it? Yeah,
it's definitely, and Tim Wellens is doing it as well. Definitely narrowed a little bit in the front. And flared out below. So I think if you measured the bars, they possibly be sitting maybe 36 on the front where the hoods are, and obviously when it gets down to the drops, it's a bit further out. But I'm just really interested to find out this group behind. Of course, at this stage, you have to go all in. You have to limit the losses. You have to hope that in one of these stages they can make up a little bit of time. You don't want to give Pogačar a minute. You know, he's going to take time today. You want to limit the losses and maybe go for another day. Might have a bad day still to come. But what I want to know is 44 seconds.
Wow.
What is the time gap to the group just behind?
Yeah.
That's the question, because Ineos and Bahrain both have riders in the group just behind us.
I guess the next question from me, Brian, is which one of those two Bahrain Victorious riders is going to work harder? It looked to me like Mikel Landa was doing quite a long turn on the front, but who's the team leader in there? Because if they're both thinking they're team leader, they might both want to sit back a little bit and try and get Carlos Rodriguez to do more.
Yeah, I think it's a case of behind, you just have to go flat out. Doesn't matter who you are. There's no team captains between Bertrego and Landa. It's just flat out. What you want to do is not give away any more time. Already 44 seconds. You want to actually bring this back a little bit, because I would think 20-30 seconds is close. If it gets to a minute, then a lot of people will think, where am I going to find this time? Because the team looks strong, Pogačar looks strong, and this is what he did the other day. He just looks so strong, and he's descending faster than the three riders behind. This is going to be about a minute at the end.
The two-time Tour de France champion Tadej Pogačar is riding away with this opening stage of the Vuelta Ciclista Andalucia, the Ruta del Sol. He's come here in great form. It's only his second day of racing this year. The problem is he hasn't lost anything yet, and if he stays out there as he's looking to do right now, he'll have won every race he's done this year. There's very few riders in the world that we wouldn't be surprised about with that. But with Tadej Pogačar, he lives on the edge of being the most surprising all the time on the bike. You just never know. Brian mentioned right the way at the base of this last 8-kilometre climb, you never quite know when he's going to attack, what he's going to do, and he does. I know it's kind of advertising hyperbole, marketing hyperbole for a rider and a team that he's exciting and unpredictable, but he actually is. That's the way he races. He really does seem to race on impulse. Of course, it helps if you have an absolutely incredible set of lungs and a set of legs and like pistons just ready to make it all happen on a climb in the way that he has today. But he doesn't half make it exciting to watch, because it doesn't have to be like this. Across the course of the next few days, actually watching him and his team, they could quite easily, I suspect, take this race all the way to its conclusion in Alhaurín de la Torre on Sunday afternoon down in Malaga. But they've chosen the first day, arguably the hardest day, and he has to strike out and see if they can get that yellow jersey. The gap, as Brian pointed out, is around about 45 seconds back to Mikel Landa and Santiago Buitrago, the two teammates on Bahrain Victorious, and the Spanish road race champion Carlos Rodriguez. The next group are some 15, maybe 20 seconds behind them. And as we saw, that's Teo Gegenhardt, Pavel Sivakov, the two Ineos Grenadiers riders, in the company of Jefferson Cepeda of Caja Rural, Brian. Sorry.
At 4 kilometres there, it's 47, so it's going out a little bit. I'm just going to take it at 3.
So he's down most of the descent. He has a tiny bit of flat at the bottom before the kick up to the line. The final kilometre is all uphill.
Just watch this, Jez, sorry.
Yeah.
When we see Pogačar, he's visibly travelling faster than this group of 3. I noticed it the other day in the race. Visibly, when you go forward again to Pogačar, he's visibly travelling faster. I've got a watch stop on the 3 kilometres. It was 47 seconds at 4 kilometres to go. Is he can out a little bit more? This is going to be close to a minute by the time he finishes, because as we go through, 50 seconds. He's taking seconds out. He's visibly going faster. You can clearly see that.
He is absolutely shredding this descent. And as always, physically he makes it look easy. I guess one of the things that does draw fans to Tadej Pogačar, though, Brian, is he does still, how do I say this? He does still ride on the edge. Even on the descent here, he's taking risks and he's really pushing it. And you can see the effort. We know, I think we can probably list riders going back down the years who've been physically so gifted, who make it look a bit too easy. But he doesn't, Pogačar, does he?
Do you know what? I think losing the Tour de France last year has had an effect on Pogačar, and an effect to do what he's doing now. To do what he did a couple of days ago, to do what he's doing now. I think what we'll see is a different Tadej Pogačar at the Tour de France this year. I had a similar conversation when Chris Hoy won his first kilo world title, lost it next year, and I said, remember how you feel? You don't want to feel like that anymore, do you? So it's attention to detail, it's full-on focus for the Tour de France. You heard it in his interview a couple of days ago. He's only interested in one thing, in winning the Tour de France, and he's going to be really, really hard to beat.
My goodness, is he? And what a message he is sending out this week. 2 races, and he's closing in on the second of 2 wins already this week. And he's ripping up this climb. He's not just settling back to enjoy the stage win. This is about winning the Ruta del Sol overall on the first day. Tadej Pogačar out the saddle inside the final kilometre as he climbs up into Santiago de la Espada. He's going to win this stage and send out a clear message that goes well beyond the 119 riders that started today's stage. It's going to shake the foundations of world cycling at the beginning of the year, and penny for the thoughts, as we say, of the riders who are hoping to take him on in July, because as Brian has said, I totally agree with him. He seems enlivened, emboldened. There is a fire lit beneath Tadej Pogačar at the start of this season, and let's hope it maintains, and I'm absolutely certain it will. He's closing in on the finish in Santiago de la Espada, and the group behind are going to be, well, they could even be close to a minute behind him come the finish. He has romped away from them. Hats off to his team, who did an awful lot of work out there for today, but Tadej Pogačar looks over his shoulders. He won't see anyone. The climb itself, Despianacabalos, is called the cutting off the legs of horses, and Tadej Pogačar, through his ride today, well, maybe he's not cut them off completely, but he's certainly tapping on the legs of the other riders and saying, hey, what have you got? The question is, today, not enough, because Tadej Pogačar is taking the win, and he's going to take over the yellow jersey at the Ruta del Sol. Look at that. He's looking around as if to say, well, did I make it look easy? Kind of, yeah. And this is the race for second here as well, Brian. Let's see if the two Bahrain victorious riders can at least set up those two podium places. Rodriguez, what's he got left in this sprint?
Well, there's no bonuses in this stage, so it's just, you know, everybody will be on the same time. But that was incredible from Pogačar. You know, he's easing up as we headed towards the line there. But, you know, this is just about limiting losses. Already 30 seconds. I think Pogačar just going to ease up a little bit. It was going to be close to a minute, but it looks as if they've kind of pared it back a little bit now. 38 seconds. So, but you can only think that this is this man's race to lose, and we're sitting in the first stage of this event, the Ruta del Sol, and 2 race days this year and 2 wins.
Yeah, I don't know what you think, Brian, but Tadej Pogačar has been quite disappointing this season so far. It can only go downhill from here. Well, it can only go downhill from here. What a start to the year. 2 races and 2 wins. There's that third group on the road, at the moment being led in by Theo Gegenhardt, who'd looked so good until the point at which the elastic snapped as well. He's got with him Pavel Sivakov, as we say. Sivakov and Gegenhardt going for this. Enric Mas just being distanced a little bit here. Damiano Caruso on the outside. It is Jefferson Cepeda at the back of that group too. Oh, Gegenhardt's looking snappy. He knows, well, hopefully he knows there's no time bonuses.
Yeah, but he's getting a second, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He looks like he's got a second there, yeah. Yep. I would call that a second back to Mikel Landa. Well, what a finale in Santiago de la Espada. Brian, I think this is going to be quite a good week. I think this is going to be a rather good week right the way through to Alhaurín de la Torre on Sunday. It is going to be all down to UAE Team Emirates and Tadej Pogačar to defend now that yellow jersey that we will see him in on the podium. Mighty impressive by the Slovenian, but that's him, isn't it? That's what we've come to expect. And the celebration, Brian, as he came towards the line was a little bit, as he looked back and all he could see was a cat running across the road, ominous perhaps. It was a little bit of, hey, 2 races, 2 wins. Look at that expression. He's absolutely loving his time on the bike, isn't he? Absolutely loving it.